I honestly think that Hitler was a good guy based upon my own research. I really do think before Hitler got on meth, he was a guy to go fishing with. He wanted to purify it by kicking the greedy out that were destroying his country and turning them all into gays.
All right, guys. So we have something to talk about. Okay. Now, if you look behind me, you're probably familiar with what this video is. UFC featherweight Bryce Mitchell started a podcast called Arkansanity with Rolly Delgado, who actually fought in the UFC a long time ago. If you've been on social media at all in the last day, you've seen this and you've seen Dana White's response to it. Now, I'm a little bit late getting to this. I wanted to let the story develop a little bit more, and we have some more context, okay? We have more things to talk about, and we got a great video for you guys. So stick around. We're going to be talking about Bryce Mitchell, Dana White, and this mess that Bryce Mitchell has caused because he has basically nuked his career, all right? So stick around. I'm Wyatt. This is Fight Society. All right, guys, so before we get into the video, please make sure to like, subscribe, drop a comment down below. All that good YouTube stuff really helps me out a lot. If you want access to some bonus content like members-only live streams and you want to support the channel even further, become a channel member through the link below this video or the join button on our channel homepage. Thank you very much. Back to the video. You're definitely familiar with this screenshot at this point, but UFC featherweight Bryce Mitchell has made some pretty crazy comments, some pretty dicey comments on his podcast, Arkansanity. And this was episode 1, okay? And I do want to mention that the podcast has been deleted. It's not on his channel anymore. But this was episode 1 of probably the most iconic, controversial podcast of all time. 1 episode, 1 and done. He was too good. He had to hang it up after 1. Like a pretty legendary podcast run. Like when people say these type of memes about me and bro, if we started a podcast, Bryce Mitchell's the only one that actually followed through on the meme, all right? But here's what Bryce Mitchell had to say. Some pretty outlandish comments made by Bryce Mitchell. And all I got to say going into this is he's in so much trouble. He is in so much trouble.
Or hailing the Nazis. I really don't think that he was, because I honestly think that Hitler was a good guy based upon my own research, not my public education indoctrination. I really do think before Hitler got on meth, he was a guy to go fishing with.
And his co-host is just sitting there like, first episode, man. We're not even going to warm him up. We're not even going to ease him into it. Episode 1. You know, this guy's like texting people all day today. Like, oh, please, guys, I don't think that, okay?
He fought for his country. He wanted to purify it by kicking the greedy Jews out that were destroying his country and turning them all into gays. They were gaying out the kids. They were queering out the women. They were queering out the dudes. They were, you know what her first tranny surgery ever was? Happened to be in Germany before Hitler took over. You know the books that everybody makes fun of Hitler burning? You know what the books was? Queer books. Hitler burned queer books because Hitler didn't want a bunch of queers destroying his nation. They can't produce children.
Bro, he's fucked. He's in so much trouble. Listen, like, I'm all for free speech. I'm just saying this is objectively crazy. I'm not saying that Bryce Mitchell should get removed from the internet. I don't think he should be cut from the UFC, anything like that. I think you should be able to say what you want to say. He didn't say this under a UFC banner. He didn't say it on a UFC microphone. It's still dumb. It's still crazy. It's still a bad thing to say. Hear me out, though. Joe Rogan has said this a bunch of times. You don't combat bad ideas by silencing them. Because then what happens then is people get suspicious about why you tried to silence it. You have to confront bad ideas with better ideas, okay? Better opinions, better explanation. Honestly, dude, Rogan should have him on the podcast. But that's what he said. This is like when you tell that one bro that girls are on the way over and to act normal. Bryce Mitchell is the guy that fumbles this, okay? Now, the internet's had a lot to say that Josh Emmett KO did irreparable amounts of damage to Bryce Mitchell mentally. That was in December of 23. A lot of people are referring to this knockout as potentially life-changing for Bryce Mitchell. I disagree personally, because even before this knockout, guys, Bryce Mitchell has been on this type of time. This is on brand for Bryce Mitchell, okay? Because here's a few of the things that Bryce Mitchell has said before, okay? He's had issues with other journalists. He's had issues on podcasts and all that type of shit before, okay? This is the type of things. This is not a result of the KO, all right? Because I know there's going to be somebody. I know there's going to be somebody that has a comment about, oh, CTE led him to say that Hitler's a good guy and shit like that. This is the type of time he's been on, all right?
And by the way, the earth don't move. The earth don't rotate. Everything in the sky rotates around the earth. Okay, and people don't understand what flat earth is or why it's important. I'm telling you, because as a Christian, you should know what God's creation looks like. And if you go to the Bible, over 5 times it says very clearly, this ain't the word of Bryce, this is the word of God, the earth shall not be moved.
That's just one thing. You know, he believes in flat earth. This is also him talking about Rogan.
I don't have the hatred for Joe Rogan that I have for some of these evil people, because Joe Rogan, he's just fucking stupid, man. He just doesn't know any better. He's fucking stupid. He really thinks we came from monkeys. And here's oh yeah, he's a stupid motherfucker, man. And he's telling kids that. That's why he's so stupid, man. He's telling kids. That's why I hate that he's telling kids that, because I
know why he's saying that? Because he's a monkey lover.
Yeah, man. Well, here's what I want to tell.
Yo, that's crazy shit to say, bro.
I want to say, Joe, why don't you go fuck a monkey and then see how many kids you can make with it? if you really believe that, Joe, because here's the thing: at one point or the other, if that's what you believe, a monkey fucked a person, or a monkey fucked a monkey and then made a person, or a caveman fucked another caveman and made a monkey. And
all right, guys. So I'm not arguing these points. I'm not agreeing with them. I'm just reacting to them a little bit. Bryce Mitchell saying super inaccurate things is on brand. Okay, specifically what he just mentioned about specifically what he just said about Joe Rogan being dumb for believing in evolution is literally not true. Here's Rogan talking about it.
Yeah, he's not. Elon's not thinking these things.
Now, this is a joke from his stand-up special, but this is still him, you know, showing suspicion towards the idea of evolution, which Bryce Mitchell just called him dumb for doing, or stupid.
Yeah, he's not. Elon's not thinking these things. If evolution's real, that guy's ahead of us. But I don't know if evolution's real. I've done zero research. I always say I think it's real because if you don't, people are mean. But it's a terrible story. Like,
crazy sweat lines, by the way.
if a moron told you the story of evolution, you'd be like, what happened? Like, once upon a time, giant lizards ruled the earth. But then a rock came from the sky and killed them all. But then a little shrew just kept doing its best. And one day it became a person. I'm like, yo, fuck that story. I'm sticking with Jesus.
So Bryce Mitchell just says things that aren't true. He makes things up. I'm not saying that anything about his statements. I'm avoiding my comments about those. But this has happened before. He's gotten banned from shows before. This is him getting kicked off of Ariel Helwani's show.
Bryce tried to hijack the show. Bryce tried to turn the show into some, platform for him to spew propaganda. Come on here and take shots at me is one thing. Come on here and start talking about Vegas being a hoax, Sandy Hook being a hoax. Like, I want nothing to do with that. You came on with an agenda to hijack my show, and you asked me beforehand, is it live? Because you were probably worried that I would edit it, which I would never do, but I don't appreciate that. Come on and tell me when I ask you, hey, I want to talk about this and that, and then we can have a conversation. We can have a conversation about this. But what he did there, I thought, was try to hijack the show and talk about something and stuff that has nothing to do with MMA. That pissed me off. That, I felt, was a bridge too far.
And so, he's been banned from shows. This dude, Bryce Mitchell, is like the definition of scaring the huzz, to be honest. But like, this is the type of stuff that happens with Bryce Mitchell. This is Bryce Mitchell telling the story of him drilling through his nutsack.
Actually, I guess evidently it snagged your shorts and.
Well, the drill actually
just for whatever reason, the trigger got taken off. I guess I moved, like right when it went off, I moved my hips back, and then the trigger stopped getting pulled on the drill. And so then I just froze in that spot, and I didn't move an inch. I just froze, just still. But if I wouldn't have, there would not have been enough resistance on my nuts to stop the drill. There's so much torque in that drill, it would have ripped my nuts clean off. It would have ripped my dick off. It would have ripped through the shorts. There's not enough torque. I mean, there's so much torque coming out of that drill. Anything it catches, it's ripping off my body. So I just froze. I just knew that if that trigger would have got pulled anymore, I would have lost a testicle or two, a wiener or whatever.
Wow. So somehow it locked in. It locked in.
You guys get the point. But this was, which I'm not trying to say that he's a bad person, but I'm just saying he's not the sharpest tool in the shed. This is how Dana White responded. Those of you that were on stream with me yesterday have seen this.
So before we get started here, let me get some fucking dumb shit out of the way first here. I'm out here, have fun doing Power Slap tonight. And I'm sure you guys heard what Bryce Mitchell said. If you haven't, he said some I've heard a lot of dumb, ignorant shit in my day, but this one's probably the worst. When you talk about Hitler, he was responsible for the death of 6 million Jews, and he tried to completely eliminate a race of people. World War II was the deadliest war in history. Completely eliminate a race of people. World War II was the deadliest war in history. 15 million military deaths, 45 million civilians, and 25 million soldiers.
Not this dude Dana reading off the World War II stats like it's the gate numbers and the ticket sales and announcing like who gets post-fight bonuses. Holy shit.
Were killed in World War II. Second of all, Hitler is one of the most disgusting and evil human beings to ever walk the face of the earth. And anyone that even tries to take an opposing position is a moron. That's the problem with the internet and social media. You provide a platform for a lot of dumb, ignorant people. We've obviously reached out to Bryce, and when we read what he said and let him know how we feel about it, we're beyond disgusted. So for those of you that don't know what's going on, good, you're lucky. For those of you that do, that's what I have to say about it. Who's got the first question?
Hey, Dana.
Hey.
So Dana, honestly, I thought personally like a super professional response in a vacuum. Like when you consider just this issue right here, great response from Dana. Fighter does something really controversial, really offensive, really ignorant, and he steps out right away and goes, this is dumb. He's an idiot. This is who we're talking about. He's dumb as fuck, blah, blah, blah. It's ignorant and all that stuff. We'll get to some of that stuff he says in a minute. Like I said, I thought Dana had an incredible response to Bryce Mitchell, but it's just interesting how, when somebody who's not the biggest draw, not somebody that's selling him 1 million pay-per-view buys or something like that, in Bryce Mitchell, Dana will lash out. But when it's two of your biggest pay-per-view stars ever in Jon Jones and Conor McGregor being accused of physical assault, sexual assault, these different things, Dana doesn't have anything to say about that. Interesting, right? I think it just takes away from how genuine this statement is. Of course, it's Dana, it's the UFC. This is just a corporate PR response. But we don't see him talking about Conor's. I mean, realistically, my personal take on the Conor situation, which is a different situation than this one, is that if you actually read the court case and you see the details, there's no way that you come to the conclusion that Conor McGregor assaulted this woman, sexually at least. But in regards to this, it's like, oh, we're going to talk about something somebody said. What about Jon Jones multiple times over being accused of violence towards women? Conor McGregor, assaults on women, multiple accusations. And one of them made it to court. Jon Jones had his whole thing at Las Vegas with his wife and his kids after the Hall of Fame ceremony. We didn't see shit about that. Dana made a joke about Jon Jones being in Vegas for the Sphere event and basically said, oh yeah, Jon promised me he's going to be good tonight. That's crazy. I'm not trying to be a Karen about it. I thought this was a great response from Dana, but I'm just saying, it's like you keep that energy for Bryce Mitchell, but you're not going to keep that energy for your draws. It makes me wonder about your motivation for speaking out here and not otherwise.
It's obviously not a fun topic to talk about, the Bryce stuff. I think that's a great statement that you just gave. Does Bryce Mitchell face a punishment from the UFC for saying
That's what everybody wants to hear about punishments. Free speech. I don't have to love it. You don't have to love it. You know.
I agree with that, the free speech sentiment. Is there a concern, though, right, if he goes out and wins a fight and gets a mic?
Well, that's the beautiful thing about this business. For all of you.
That's one thing. Bryce Mitchell's never getting a mic ever again. If he wins a fight, Rogan is not going in there to interview him after the fight.
You that hate Bryce Mitchell, you get to see him hopefully get his ass whooped on global television. I mean, what do you want me to say about it? You know where I am with free speech. We're disgusted by it. I think he's probably one of the dumbest, literally one of the dumbest human beings. Let's not forget that this is a guy who took a drill through his nutsack, then had to reverse it and put the drill back out of his. That's the level of stupid that we're talking about here. And I could probably go on for 10 minutes talking about how dumb.
Please do.
Bryce Mitchell is. But guess what? Bryce Mitchell has a podcast.
I believe this was episode 1.
What a way to start. But that's the world that we live in now. Dumb people who are really stupid and really ignorant can have a voice. We don't have to agree with it. We don't have to like it. I'm giving you mine and the UFC's position on what he had to say. You know, and this is no different than things that I've said about Strickland, you know. But
what about John Jones and Connor?
I will say this. Out of all the dumb, ignorant shit I've heard in my life, this has to be the dumbest and most ignorant.
There was actually a couple of fighters that spoke out. This was Jan Blachowicz, who's from Poland, via Cage Side Press from his Twitter. Jan Blachowicz tweets, "Hey, Bryce Mitchell, since you're so good at research, I invite you to take a little educational tour. We'll start in Warsaw, which was nearly razed to the ground in 1945. You will see memorial plaques commemorating the public executions of civilians. We'll take a walking tour of the ex-ghetto area. By the way, we will go to Palmyra, where the Nazis executed 1,700 people, including Olympic champion Janusz Kusosinski. Then we will go to Auschwitz, where 1 million people were murdered. You can reflect on each prisoner separately. I will also share a personal story because Waclaw, my grandfather's brother, was in this camp. Jan Bednarik, in my turn, is my grandmother's brother who died in the Buchenwald camp. My grandfather was held in a German prisoner of war camp. I invite you to Poland to see all of this with your own eyes. We'll see if you still consider you-know-who a good guy." And I thought this was a super classy response from a super classy fighter in Jan Blachowicz. You know, he's on the older side. He's in his 40s. And I like this response a lot. This was actually great because what you have is when you have somebody like Bryce Mitchell who's in Arkansas, he's not like going out and seeing things. He's just on the internet, you know? That's where he ends up at these opinions. Then somebody who people they know personally were affected by these things that Bryce Mitchell says didn't happen. And this is actually a really good perspective for me as like a American guy seeing comments from someone who's actually from the part of the world that was affected by all of these things that happened that Bryce Mitchell is saying didn't happen. I mean, honestly, crazy. I mean, he might need to learn a little something about the Polish power as well. You know what I'm saying? A little left hook ski on the chin for Bryce Mitchell. Actually, that might convince him for sure that this stuff didn't happen. But Doo-Ho Choi spoke out too, who's also the Korean Superboy on Instagram. That's his username. He called out Bryce Mitchell because they both fought on UFC 310. And Doo-Ho Choi called out Bryce Mitchell after his fight. Says, "Picture of Jesus after hearing Bryce's podcast. On behalf of everyone, including Jesus, I'll give Bryce a good history lesson in the octagon." Fighters are speaking out. Journalists, Dana White, a lot of people have a lot to say, okay? This is crazy shit. Like, Bryce Mitchell's in a lot of trouble. But I see a lot of comments of people talking about, UFC athlete code of conduct. Should he get cut? Should he get suspended? Should he get fined? These are the things that happen in the corporate very corporate, established team sports like the NFL, NBA, MLB, all that. And I think he should not be allowed to talk into a mic because that's bad for business if he says something like this on a UFC broadcast. But with that said, I don't think that there should be like a UFC code of conduct or anything like that. That's what makes this sport as crazy and chaotic as it is. And this isn't just a normal team sport. This is fighting. There is a crazy aspect to this. And so I don't think you can have a crazy sport like this with crazy people involved and not expect people to do and say crazy shit. Now, I'm not condoning John Jones allegedly beating his wife. I'm not condoning Conor McGregor's 5 or 10 possible assaults. Okay. I'm not condoning those type of things. But if you want to enjoy a sport that involves something like fighting for money, you can't always expect the smartest, the most sane, or the most reasonable people to be your athletes, okay? These people aren't media trained the way that you have college football players and minor league baseball players getting talks about, hey, no, direct it back to the team. Thank the coach, thank the team. Don't take any personal credit. Don't say anything controversial. These guys don't get that type of thing. They're allowed to do their thing in terms of saying their opinions and shit like that. And everything that Dana said about everyone can have an opinion. Sometimes the people with those opinions in front of a microphone are inaccurate, dumb, whatever you want to say. But with that said, I don't think that the UFC should have like any sort of code of conduct at all. That's just my opinion. That's what I'm not saying Bryce Mitchell saying Hitler is a good guy is what makes this sport so great, but it's a great sport, amazing sport, way more entertaining than any other sport. And we have some of the craziest characters involved. I'm not going to agree with anything Bryce Mitchell said because I don't agree with him. But as a whole, this is part of what makes our sport so crazy and why we love it so much. So while he shouldn't be saying those things, he does have the right to say what he wants, I guess. You know? So they're definitely going to match him up with some terrible prospect matchup. They're going to give him some unranked guy that's got insane takedown defense and insane power on the feet. Like they're going to match him up with Ilia Topuria again, or they're going to give him like Gene Silva or something like that. Like somebody that can sprawl out on his takedown attempt and then just beat the piss out of him. So one thing that's absolutely for certain is that Bryce Mitchell is not going to get another Crone Gracie matchup. Okay. And by the way, don't let any of this forget you that they put Crone Gracie against Bryce Mitchell on the UFC 310 main card, and UFC 312 next weekend has a guy making his UFC debut against Justin Tafa on the main card. So don't let any of this distract you from the fact that they're booking bad cards on purpose, okay? But let me know what you guys think. Should he be punished? Should there be a code of conduct? Would you have cut him in this position? Or do you think he should be allowed to say what he wants and deal with the consequences publicly and in the octagon? Let me know your thoughts down below. Thanks for watching this video. Please make sure to like, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff. It really helps me out a lot. If you want access to bonus content, become a channel member today by clicking the join button on our channel homepage or the link down below this video. If you're interested in some non-MMA content from me, go check out my podcast, What's Up Bro, with Wyatt and Bo, in the link down below. Go watch this suggested video, and I'll see you next time.